I would say the most important thing is to focus. Like you should already be focused when you're podcasting anyway. And since they see you, clear up your background. Don't make it cluttered. Don't have like 4 dogs behind, just be normal, be professional. Like act like, oh, they're giving me their time.
Podcast Junkies, episode 248. Welcome back. I'm your host, Harry Duran. If you are new to the podcast, welcome. Thanks for joining me on your inaugural trip down Podcast Landia, or the Podosphere. But more on that later. This is the show where I talk to fascinating people, interesting people in the podcasting space, and get them to kick back their heels and share what's going on in their world. In case you missed last week's episode, we had a great conversation with Stephanie Fuccio. Stephanie is the host of several podcasts and also the founder and creator of Pod Rev Day. So make sure you check out that episode if you haven't already. This week I speak to longtime friend and past guest Christine Blackburn. This episode is brought to you by Focusrite and specifically the Scarlett 2i2 sound card, one of my favorite go-to sound cards, something I use for each and every podcast recording. The 3G line is a go-to for all new podcasters. Find out more at podcastjunkies.com/Focusrite, and the link will be in the show notes as well. Christine's first appearance on the show was way back on episode 110, so I'll drop that episode in the show notes so you can check that out. I welcome her back, and obviously we talk a little bit about the impact of COVID and the growth of her podcast, Storyworthy. If you haven't heard of it, it's a show where Hollywood's most talented people in the entertainment industry share true personal stories. Her past list of guests are a who's who of folks in the entertainment space: Larry King, Sugar Ray Leonard, Kevin Nealon, Ed Asner, Adam Carolla, and Matt Oswald. She's also the host of Story Smash, the storytelling game show that airs live on Facebook and YouTube on Fridays. Christine is a consummate creator, and we talk about her decision to launch new shows, including the Storyworthy Hour of Power. I'm curious about how she gets the caliber of guests on her show and how remote interviewing has changed her approach. She actually used to do all of those in person. She was selected as a speaker at the recent Podcast Movement Virtual Summit, and she shares her takeaways and also talks about what continues to motivate and drive her, as well as her newest project, which she's sharing here. It's called My Life in 3 Songs. We talk about how that podcast is going to be possible with the changes recently announced by Spotify and their ability to allow songs from their catalog in the creation of podcasts on that platform. Let's not forget that this episode is also brought to you by Fullcast. Fullcast.co is the website. If you need help with any aspect of your show, from launch to production and marketing, we can help. Schedule a free chat at fullcast.co/chat15 about your existing or new show. Don't forget, if you're enjoying this episode or past episodes, I'd love it if you leave a rating and a review at ratethispodcast.com/podcastjunkies. It was really fun to catch up with Christine, and I'm sure you'll really enjoy this episode. Make sure you stay to the end of the episode where I reveal this week's retention hashtag. So Christine Blackburn, host of Storyworthy, welcome back for round 2 of Podcast Junkies.
Yay! I'm still a junkie, and I still have a podcast.
That's a lot of people that I haven't gone back to check all the people that I interviewed in those early days. Since I started in 2014, it'd be interesting to see who still has a podcast.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
Podcasting.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So we're going to date stamp this November 2020. We're in the middle of round 2 or round 3 of the COVID pandemic. So just as a check-in, we haven't chatted in a while. So the benefit of this podcast is my ability to, and my platform for catching up with old friends as well. So
yeah, I agree. I love it.
How you been, and what's been the impact since March?
Well, the big impact is that my daughter is home, obviously, and she's 13. She's in 8th grade. She's in her bedroom in school right now. Yeah. And, I like having her around, to tell you the truth. But I feel bad for her in terms of, she's got her friends and stuff, but it's, they can't see. She has a couple friends she can see that are in our bubble, as it were. But there's no school dances. There's no mingling. Yeah. And as the mother of a preteen, I like it that way. I think it's best that we just continue this social distancing until she's, I'd say, 35. No, but it's good and bad, you know?
I mean, it is. There's like two sides of it, because then there's the side that says it. We've all been through it. They're rites of passage, and for better or for worse, I know a lot of people have like mixed feelings about preteen years and high school, but somehow we ended up stronger because of it, and we look back at those times and as helping us build character. So there's
I don't know about that because at least where I went to school, there was a lot of what we called teasing, but it was bullying.
Yeah.
And there was some like scarring. Like I can remember people getting made fun of. I can remember making fun of people. I can remember being made fun of.
Yeah.
I remember in 7th grade, this girl, Denise Bender, didn't like me. And I always used to wear my hair kind of like it is now. No, I'm kidding. Kind of like it is now, except I would always put like a little ponytail on the side of my head up high because that's what Suzanne Summers was wearing on Three's Company.
Yeah.
And so one day, this girl, because she just was such a bitch, she was always in competition with me. I mean, I was like 12 or 13, one or the other, very young. And she got to school early and she wrote on every single blackboard in all the rooms, all the chalkboards, it's Christine Blackburn Day. And then she put her hair, she passed out rubber bands and ponytail holders, and everybody put their hair up on the side of their head, including Mr. Pilot and Mr. Seftis and these teachers and some of the female teachers and the men. It was like they all were laughing at me.
Wow.
And I didn't get it at all. And I had to go to the office crying, and it was so bad. And then my friend, Chris Blayhack, came to the office and sat with me until my mom came and picked me up. I had to leave. It was scarring.
Did they realize after the fact how ridiculous that was to do to a child?
I don't even remember any recourse at all. I think kids move on quickly. You know, I don't think they probably thought about it again, but I was devastated.
But you said the teachers were doing it as well, too,
I know,
right?
because I think that they thought it was a ha, like this is funny. I don't think they thought it was bullying.
Yeah.
But it was. And I just couldn't believe it was happening. And I have a reoccurring nightmare of walking down that hallway and seeing in every room that written on the blackboard. Isn't that terrible?
It's funny, the little things that you carry with you into adulthood.
Sucks, man. And then I have a reoccurring nightmare about not finishing my grandfather's clock because I was in woodshop for 4 years in high school, and I built a grandfather's clock, and that was like the huge senior project. It was a big deal. And at the time, it cost us money. We had to buy the wood and everything. And so,
like a freestanding one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. It took 9 months to make and 2 classes a day. And I finished, and it's beautiful. It's in my mom's house in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Sometimes I think about how am I going to bring that thing to California someday? And what the hell would I want it for? But how could I get rid of it? I made it when I was 17. You know what I mean?
Functional, you had to build the clock, or where'd the mechanism come from?
The mechanisms we bought. So like the clock at that time, I think to buy the mechanisms and the wood was depending on the kind of wood you bought. And I bought walnut because Mr. Santa Cruz always said that walnut is the Cadillac of woods. And so I made mine in walnut, and it was about $350, which was a lot of money in the early 80s. And anyway, I forget, why did we start talking about my wood shop? Oh yeah, I have a nightmare that I didn't finish my clock. Freaks me out.
That's interesting. And so what's been the impact besides your daughter of like, how's LA been, and how's that happened to the day to day?
Yeah, LA's quiet. It's quiet, and I'm able to play tennis about 4 or 5 days a week, which is nice.
Yeah, I keep saying that's one of the few
social
acceptable sports you can do now. I imagine that's probably picking up, right? A lot of people playing more tennis
probably.
now.
There's quite a few courts very close to me, so I'm lucky to have a choice. And I have about 4 or 5 tennis partners that I play with regularly. And I'm playing today with my buddy Ed. I've been playing with Ed for 20 years. He's 80 years old.
Wow.
And he can hit like you can't even believe it, Harry. It's so much fun. He's like hitting with a backboard. He's not going to miss the ball. He won't miss.
Yeah.
Now he's not running. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. There's not a lot of running. Yeah.
But we're doing
chasing.
different games. Yeah, it depends on the game you're playing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's very nice that I'm able to do that. But LA is quiet. A lot of people are moving out because it's very expensive here, as you know.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I wouldn't say a lot of people are moving out, but no, I would say that because I see to rent signs everywhere. To rent, to
Mm,
lease, to let, etc. And it's depressing. And going down Hollywood Boulevard or Sunset, like everything's closed up and it is sad. It's really
mm,
sad. We're lucky to have some outdoor dining
yeah,
because of the weather, so that's helpful,
that's
but
true. Yeah.
it's still so scary right now, and the governor is telling us to stay home because we're kind of back to where we were. And obviously, luckily Biden's coming into office, and that I think obviously will sort things out. I'm impressed already about the scientists and the doctors that he's already rallied around him. He's
Hmm.
hiring people back that who fired,
Yeah.
and it's going to be good. We're going to see a turnaround. But right now, I haven't been home to Pittsburgh in almost 2 years. My daughter
Oh
hasn't
wow.
seen my 4 sisters, my brother, my mom in 4 years or in over 2 years. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
it's
How often
dreadful.
were you going back?
Oh, every 2 years. No, I'm
Okay.
kidding. I go back about once a year.
Okay.
I go
And
5 days in the spring. That's generally what I do.
you may have seen like through the social media updates. I had my friend from high school, my best friend from high school. He passed from COVID, and so
Ah,
that happened in April. And he was my age, so he didn't. I just turned 50 last month, but he
wow.
didn't make it to 50. So I
Wow.
thought it was interesting.
That is so sad. I am so sorry.
Yeah, we had fallen out of touch. We hadn't been in touch for like 10 years, but it was still like he's for like that 6, 7, 8 year period. We were like best friends,
Oh my
and
gosh, I can't imagine how impactful. Did he have any other underlying conditions?
yeah, from what I heard, maybe like a little bit overweight,
Hmm.
which I think was common for people in like the early like waves.
My God,
But
I'm
other
so
than that,
sorry.
yeah. I mean, but it's interesting because that gives you some context for like people until people know someone or know someone who knows someone. It's
Yeah.
just kind of like happening out there,
Yeah.
and then as that starts to happen, you're like makes you take it a little bit more seriously.
You're not kidding. You're not kidding. I talked to my mom in Pittsburgh and she lives like in the suburbs and she goes, "Well, we don't see any of it here. I don't know anybody that has." And I'm like, "Please, it's happening." You know, it-
Yeah,
it's
we're at as of today, we're at 250,000
right.
deaths in the
250
country.
million.
Yeah,
250,000.
thousand. Yeah. 250,000.
And
Yeah.
sometimes I think about the 3,000 victims on 9/11 and how we held them up to such esteem, and we should, et cetera,
Mm-hmm.
because they were just people going about their business, et cetera. But this is unbelievable. I mean,
Because
I
it's
was
happened
thinking
so
about,
slowly and drawn out, and people don't like. Obviously, if that happens in one, like if 250,000 died in one day, people would be like, "Oh my god!" Like it would be
yeah,
we wouldn't stop talking about it. But the fact that it's been happening over these 6, 7 months.
I'm blown away by how some people are so cavalier and they don't get the gravity of the situation. And so it's exciting that Biden's coming into office, but what are 70 million Americans thinking? What are they doing? It's so
That's right.
bizarre.
It is frustrating, but it's also interesting to try and understand. Like I think I was talking to a friend yesterday, and I said that people's initial reaction, like on their Facebook feeds or Twitter feeds, whatever you're spending the most time, and you start to see these people that you disagree with, and some of them could be family members, some of them could be friends, and I think people's initial reaction is to like shut them off, block them, stop them in their feed, and I don't think that's the best approach because if you start pruning your feed to only things that you want to hear, then when something like this happens and everyone's shocked that there's like 70 million people, I think whether you agree or disagree, and you can decide how to handle those comments, but to know that they're happening is important because some of those people have a genuine, if you were able to sit down with them and say, hey, let's find common ground. Like, where are we off here? Like, what am I missing? And agree that we're going to have a discussion that's not going to lead into like one person yelling at each other or cursing the other person
I
out. I think
agree, except
there's a
for I
genuine
don't.
interest.
Yeah, but I don't want that propaganda in my mailbox. I don't want it in my feed. I don't. I got a life to lead. I got a daughter. I'm a single mom. I got a couple of
Yeah,
podcasts and
yeah,
shows. Like that's where my attention is. Trying to make idiots understand basic common science. It's just not up my alley.
yeah.
It's just not. And they're not my listeners. And they're not going to be giving me a good review on Apple Podcasts. So whatever. I mean,
Has
they're
the
dead to me. No, I'm kidding. I do have cousins. I have 4 cousins. They're all boys, all last name Blackburn, all been through the Air Force, and they're all Trump supporters.
Yeah. Should make for, well, there's not going to be a lot of Thanksgiving traveling anyway, so maybe that's a good thing because this, if the,
what are you going to do, Harry?
Oh, we are actually, my partner and I are driving to see my parents in New York. I'm in Minneapolis now, so, and we're good. I just got a COVID test a couple days ago. We're waiting on the results just to be sure. But yeah, it's a day and a half travel, so we're going to stay quarantined and just stay with my parents. That's it. So.
And where are you right now?
Minneapolis.
In Minneapolis. Interesting.
Yeah. Where my partner's from, she grew up here and getting reacquainted to the cold because I grew up in New York. And then obviously, as you know, I was in LA for 4 or 5 years and got myself a new winter coat. And
yeah, wow. Minneapolis. Yeah. It's a chilly place.
And also happened to be ground zero for the racial unrest that started on top of COVID in April. So that was an interesting one, too. It was crazy.
Have you ever seen the movie Young Adult with Charlize Theron?
I don't think so. I've heard of it.
Write that down. Yeah, watch that because it takes place in the Minneapolis.
Okay.
It's very really cool. Good.
She's one of my favorite actresses.
And Patton Oswalt's in it. He's really good.
So you mentioned a couple of podcasts, and we probably want to bring listeners up to speed because yours was episode 110. Just took a quick look. So that was a while back because I'm at 240 now. So.
Right. That's so exciting. I saw that today that you were at 240, actually. That's wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, Storyworthy's been going for over 10 years. Wow. I celebrated my 10-year anniversary this past July, and I have 649 episodes, actually. So it's been a while.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. It's great. I'm pretty happy about it. I got to speak at Podcast Movement, and I did a session called A Decade of Podcasting. And that was really nice. I always love Podcast Movement because I love the energy. Yeah. I love people as excited about podcasting as I am. And I like to see how serious people take podcasting now, because when I started in 2010, there were only 2% of the world listening to podcasts. Now I think it's up to 7%, which is pretty remarkable. It's more than tripled in 10 years.
And even if you look at the Edison Research stuff, I
love that stuff.
It crossed over, it's like 50 or 60% are familiar with the term podcasting now. It officially is past the halfway mark. So.
And then also like radio is shrinking and other categories are shrinking to make room for podcasting. So it's definitely the future. And with that in mind, I'm starting another one.
So bring us up to speed on all the shows now.
Well, Storyworthy is when I bring on generally a comedian or a comedy writer, sometimes directors or actors and actresses. And I have them tell me a true story, and then we chat about it. Because I find that when people tell you a story, you can learn a lot about them. Instead of saying, where are you from? What college did you go to? How many brothers and sisters do you have? Like that stuff gets so boring, and long-form interview is just way overdone, in my opinion.
Favorite ice cream? Spirit animal?
Ay. Yeah, and also there's a lot of... Oh, well, whatever. And so I bring on comedians because they understand the idea of brevity. And I'm a comic, and most of my friends are comics or people in the industry, as it were, because I'm here in Los Angeles. And I've been here for over 23 years. And I always tell people that I get about one friend a year in LA, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I have about 23 good friends. Now I have a lot of friends.
Yeah.
So it just takes some time. But anyway, it's pretty great. I'm really proud of Storyworthy. It has me branched off into doing a lot of other things, with Storyworthy still remaining like the mothership. That's ground control is Storyworthy. And then all my other shows come off of that. So Storyworthy keeps going every week. I've never missed a week. In fact, in 2014, I took 5 months and I did 2 episodes a month for 5 months. I made a commitment. No, not 2 episodes. I did 2 episodes a week for 5 months. So I did 40 episodes in 5 weeks.
Wow.
And I thought that would double my listeners, right? I was hoping to double my downloads because I thought to myself, well, Mark Maron's on twice a week and I listen twice a week. Adam Carolla's on 4 days a week, sometimes 5. I listen to 4 or 5 days a week. Howard Stern is on anywhere from 1 to 4 days a week. I listen when he's on. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have 2 a week. I'm going to try this out. I'm going to do an experiment. And I did. And I busted my ass because I do all the editing as well. I do the pre-production, the production, the post-production, everything. And it was a lot of work. And what I found was that I was just giving my audience a choice of episodes. I couldn't actually take another hour of their life.
Yeah.
And people forget that, the typical person has like 30 things in their Netflix queue that they haven't gotten to yet. So
absolutely. And now more than ever.
Right. And now you're competing with Ozark. So who do you think you are? I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's hard to get an audience. That being said, what we were just talking about, the Nielsen reports show that more and more people are listening, et cetera. So I think there is an advantage to, getting the content out there, but it has to be at the expense of your health or your day-to-day life if you have a family and how much you're doing. But anyway, that was way back in 2014. So I kept it up. Over the years, I've been with 2 different networks at Storyworthy. And every time I've gotten a network, I got so excited. And then when the network goes away, they like Sideshow Network just went away. Or I was with Wondery and they dropped about 15 shows at once. And I was one of those shows. I was with them for 2 years. And when that happens, like I have been so crushed. And it's so upsetting. But
take it personally.
Very, very personally. Like, this is my product. So you're saying you hate it. So you're saying I suck. So you're saying, what have I been doing?
It's like a breakup. It's not you, it's me.
It's tough, man. But then, again, of course, we have to keep on moving. And now I have a better perspective for sure, because honestly, I'm in the driver's seat, right? I'm the quarterback of my show. And if somebody doesn't want me on their network, or I haven't even tried to get a network in 3 years. But the point is if, now they'd be so lucky to get me. It's not even funny.
Well, it sounds like you can start your own network now.
I'm not that interested. No, I'm really not, because I do this for me and my audience, and so I can perform. I'm really not doing this.
You don't have an extra 4 hours in a day? I'm
not really interested in helping. And, honestly, I highlight so many people on my show, and the show really isn't about me, because I'm just guiding them through. I'm just the facilitator to get them to tell these true stories and make them shine. So already the show's not about me, because I highlight other people. But I am not going to put myself in a position to make myself responsible for other people's work, because as you know, podcasting is so hard, and you either have that in you or you do not. And that's fine. I teach a podcasting class, and I tell my students right away, you could do anything, man. Your goals are your own. Whether you just want to make something for you and your partner to listen to, or you want your family to listen to, or you want your neighborhood to listen to, even if you're doing just a community podcast or whatever, that's fine. Everybody doesn't have the goal that I have, which is my own show. Television show, like money, When I think of like Spotify giving Joe Rogan $100 million, like on one hand, okay, I guess it's a good business move, because people are saying that had he kept it on his own, he could have made a lot more than that.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, it's like, Spotify, you could have given 100 really good podcasts, really quality podcasts, a platform, and given them $1 million each.
Yeah.
To 100. And what about that idea? What about really spreading it open, blowing it wide open? But they didn't do that. But my point is, there's still money to be made, and that's my goal.
I think overall, it was good for the industry. I mean, we're still talking about it, so people are talking about it. And I think people noticed our finding Joe Rogan, so they're going to find other podcasts.
Oh my gosh, of course.
Obviously, you want to be, even just being on Spotify, it's sort of like rising tide lifts all boats.
All ships rise and all that. No, I totally agree. I'm just using it as the idea that there is money to be made.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But you don't have to either. So when I talk about podcasting, it's from my point of view, and it's from what my goals are. Other people, God bless you, do what you want. Who cares? That's the beauty.
And so what else are you working on?
Okay, so I have the podcast. Then over the whole pandemic, I've been doing the Storyworthy Hour of Power every Sunday night live on Zoom. And I did it for 27 weeks in a row, which is a lot of Sundays. I never missed a Sunday. 27 times 4, whatever that is. I booked all those guests because it was always myself and 4 others.
Yeah.
Plus, that show would start at 6 p.m. Pacific Coast time. And then at 7 o'clock, because it was called the Hour of Power. So 1 hour of six stellar stories. I never pick people that aren't fantastic. And then after that hour, we would play Story Smash, the storytelling game show, which is my game show, which we played at the Hollywood Improv for 3 years. We sold out the lab there at the Hollywood Improv for almost 3 years. And then when COVID hit, we couldn't do our March show, and you know the rest of the story. So we brought Story Smash back onto the Sunday night Zoom show. So that's been really fun. I did 27 of them. And it's so funny, Harry. I said to myself, I really need to take a break because, you know, it's not just the shows. It's the flyers. It's the posting. It's it's a headache. And I take every one of those shows and I edit them in iMovie and I put them up on YouTube. So there's a lot of uploading and downloading and my computer's jammed and things are slow. I'm losing my mind. My hands have got carpal tunnel and all that.
That's funny.
Not that funny, but
yeah.
I got a call yesterday from Flappers Club in Burbank here, and they want to have the Storyworthy Hour of Power on their stage every Sunday night. So now the Storyworthy Hour of Power, it'll be once a month actually, on the third Sunday of every month at Flappers Burbank. It's a great comedy club. And I'll be hosting it, and I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. I mean, obviously, the club is closed.
I think I may have been there once.
Yeah, well, the club is closed right now, but I mean, in a virtual world. And in one respect, you know, these virtual shows, some people don't like them. But on the other hand, like Flappers and even my show that I was doing on Sunday nights, I was getting people in Spain, I was getting people in London, and people from all over the world, same as Flappers. They're getting, you know, not only sometimes the 200 people they can hold in their showroom, but they are actually getting, depending on the show, more than that. So it's kind of like this thing that I think in a way is here to stay.
Yeah.
Whether we go back or not.
Yeah.
There's no reason why if you live in Shanghai, you shouldn't watch the Flappers show on the third Sunday of every month.
Yeah, I always say that anyone, especially from an entrepreneurial perspective, like people were forced to create an online version of their business, and you've now opened up to anyone that's, if it's, you know, obviously anyone that's English speaking anywhere in the world, consume or watch your stuff. Right. And we were forced to create that.
Yeah. And I'm excited to start pitching that stuff on my podcast, the Flappers thing, because I have fans in South Korea. I have fans in all over Africa. I have fans from Storyworthy. So this is exciting in a way. I mean, to take something away from the pandemic, it's our ability to stay in touch and how small the world really is.
Have you noticed the caliber of the guests that you're getting on the show now has changed? Is this the same?
Dude, it's so great. It's unbelievable. I had on Kevin Nealon, and he's down in Nashville at his brother's house or somebody's house.
Yeah.
I had on a guy I don't want to talk about him because then he was accused of sexual assault.
Oh, no.
Never to mention his name again. But anyway, I had on a girl in Toronto the other day, a girl named Marcia Shandor, totally talented, amazing. She runs like the whole Toronto scene in storytelling. And I've had on Adam Ferreira in New York. I had on Barry Sonnenfeld in Telluride, Colorado. I had on Tony Tripoli in Phoenix. It's been fantastic. And you know, the first 9 years and 3/4 years of Storyworthy, I did 600 interviews. And that was my whole thing, is that I had to be in person. That was like my whole thing. That was my whole thing. I don't know why I thought that way. I just thought, you know, we really need to see each other and the energy and everything. So I was luckily able to get enough people, because I guess because here in Los Angeles, I was able to get enough people to really pack out my show with some pretty good names, big names. But now when the pandemic started, we all had to shift, of course. So I tried about 3 or 4 different ways at first. Like there was a telephone way I used, and then there was like a Zoom. Anyway, then I landed on Squadcast pretty early on, actually. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I think it's everyone's comfort. It's not something that you have to explain to people, because everyone was forced into this experiment. And people were doing the talk shows. Like Jimmy Fallon was doing it from home and Conan O'Brien, like in
Yeah.
those early months. So I think everyone was just had to acclimate very quickly to the new environment.
I love it. I love it because it's like people that have ingenuity are able to rise up. So it's like we all got put down on the same level and now people are moving. And what's going for me is my ingenuity, my curiosity, and my ability to get myself around a computer. I really, luckily, have become quite adept at the computer because of my years of podcasting.
Yeah. Have you noticed any change in how you handle the interviews because you're forced to do it remotely versus in person?
Well, I got lights. I kind of felt like I had to get some lights so you look okay. This is a tablecloth behind me.
That's funny.
And this is a black flat. I ordered them on Google, black flats, or on Amazon.
Okay.
And I am now...
Looks like the Johnny Carson Tonight Show curtains.
Thank you very much, Harry Duran.
Date myself with that reference.
Well, no, you've got a good eye. That's exactly what it is. I wouldn't even be doing what I do if it wasn't for Johnny Carson. He's like my complete idol because he was my father's idol. There's a whole story. But anyway, so there I'm just still doing the podcast Storyworthy, and I've got the Storyworthy Hour of Power now the third Sunday of every month at Flappers, which is going to be just great because they've got their own technicians and I don't have to do all the work.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm thrilled.
But I was wondering if...
But I still get to book everybody.
Do you notice anything about how you have to be more attentive, the energy level, or, something about a screen that's hard because you can get body language, obviously you're in person. Do you find that you're not missing a beat and you're able to get that same vibe, that same energy from the guests?
Honestly, I personally am pretty lucky because I have been in over 100 commercials. So I'm used to looking at a camera and I'm used to talking to people like that. I don't have to see myself on screen. I can look at the camera. So I happen to have that skill, which is really fortunate. But I can see, and it hasn't been easy, but it hasn't been that hard for me. But I can see how it would be. I would say the most important thing is to focus, like you should already be focused when you're podcasting anyway. And since they see you, clear up your background. Don't make it cluttered. Don't have like 4 dogs behind, just be normal, be professional. Act like, oh, they're giving me their time. This is not a joke. Unless your podcast is like that. I hate to always speak for everybody.
Yeah.
If
There's so many
you
flavors.
have the jumbled, confused, wacky podcast, God bless you.
The Funhouse podcast.
Yeah, well, that's great. Good for you.
So talk for the folks who weren't able to attend your session at Podcast Movement. A decade of podcasting is a long time. What were some of the highlights or the takeaways that you talked about during that talk?
Well, my show was like almost the last thing at Podcast Movement. In fact, I think it was the last or one of the last things before the virtual dance party, which, I was there. Anyway.
How'd that go?
I was not at the virtual dance party. I don't understand. That is where I have to back out.
Yeah, there's certain things you just can't recreate over Zoom or video.
I'm just, life is too short. Anyway, so I wanted my session to be fun. I didn't really want to teach because everybody has been being taught at for like 2 full weeks this year. And so I wanted to just make it fun. And so I gave some tips, but I also played 3 or 4 clips from my podcast of really intense stories, like 2 very funny ones, like just hilarious. And then one when I got to have Sugar Ray Leonard on my podcast.
Oh, nice.
And he gave, and I only played like 30 seconds of the clip, but he was just saying, look, you got to be a fighter. You got to stay with it. It was just kind of a neat little button on the end of the thing. And so I didn't give that many tips and stuff. I think one person did say something like, I wish this wasn't just, and I don't know, something like, they wanted me to tell them what to do. And I did tell them things like, don't quit. I don't know. What else can I tell you? It's going to be hard. You are going to have highs when you get a network, and you are going to have lows when they drop your ass. You are going to have highs when things work and lows when the equipment doesn't work. And when, you need a new computer and you don't have any money, you're going to be low. And when somebody gives you a microphone because they have another one, then you're going to be thrilled. And you're going to learn and you're going to make mistakes. The good news is there's so many resources, like Podcast Junkies, for one, where you can listen and learn from people's mistakes. So it's all about how far you want to take it. You don't have to go far, but you can. So it's what you put into it, because you are the quarterback of your show. I also urge people to change if they want to change. If you don't want your co-host anymore or it's not working, split. Don't be angry about it. Just say it didn't work. If you want to change your logo, change it. You want to change your music, change it. If you want to change how you edit, change it. Like, this is an art form and it ebbs and flows, and you have to roll with it. It's never going to be perfect. It just isn't. And some shows are going to be a lot better than others, but you just have to keep on going. And so if you want to, and if you don't want to, just say, I'm doing 2 shows a month. That's it. Whatever.
Yeah.
And as long as you're consistent and it's the second Tuesday of every month or whatever, then fine. Nobody cares. And you don't need a lot of followers. You need good followers. You don't need 10,000 downloads. You need 1,000 good people who believe in you. That's it.
Yeah.
What if you got $1 a person, an episode, $4 a month per person, times 1,000? I don't do math, as my daughter will attest. But
Well, there's the co-creator of Wired magazine, Kevin Kelly, has a very popular article. He calls it the 1,000 True Fans, and he says if you could get 1,000 fans and get them to pay you $100 a year, so that's not a lot. It's like less than $10 a month. Can you create something that would be worth it for people to give you $100 a year?
That's a lot of money.
And then that's a job for a lot of people, and so that speaks to exactly what you were talking about.
But also, at the same time, it's going to be, the quality of your show is going to depend on how you set the tone. So really think it out before you, if you're already podcasting, go with it. You're doing great. Keep it up. But if you haven't started podcasting, wait a minute and really think about this. Or say I'm going to do a 3-month commitment. That's it. Or whatever. Map out your goals before you start. Just do your first 3 or 4 shows into an iPhone. Just do it. Just start talking in your iPhone. Can you talk for 5 minutes without being interrupted? Or what do you have to say?
Can you hold a thought for 5 minutes?
And why?
Hold a conversation.
Why are you doing this? That's the big one. Because if you ever get lost about what you're up to, if you think about the why you're up to it, then you should be right back on track.
So 10 years in, Christine, what keeps you going?
I have a daughter, Harry. She likes to eat. Now, ready for this? Every day. I have to feed her every day, 3 times a day.
So you're monetizing the show. You're keeping it going, and obviously you want to keep. So you're working with
in other
sponsors
words,
now?
this is really. I have some sponsors, but they come and go. Again, that's going to ebb and flow. Sometimes I have them, sometimes I don't. This last couple of months haven't been great, but then it was really good this summer. It really just depends. But what I'm saying is, from my show, I've been able to start these other shows, and those are sometimes more money makers for me. Okay, so I'm starting a new podcast. I don't know if you guys heard that Spotify, I'm sure you did, Harry, that Spotify opened up its licensing of music.
Oh, yeah.
With the caveat that the show remains on Spotify exclusively.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's a pretty big caveat, you know what I'm saying? But I've had a show in mind for at least 6 years that I've been wanting to get out so badly. And I never thought about Spotify. I only ever had my eye on SiriusXM, which I still have my eye on. Yeah. But all of a sudden, when Spotify announced this, I pretty much recorded an episode as soon as I heard that. Like, I just started talking into my cell phone. Here we go. I got it. And I'm so happy. And my logo looks great. And I will tell you that the name of my new show is called My Life in 3 Songs.
Okay.
That's it.
And it's going to be episodic, like weekly, or?
Every week, I'll have on a different comedian because that's my tribe. I'll have on a different comedian to talk about their 3 songs in their life that have impacted them. It doesn't have to be their favorite song, but 3 songs that when you hear that song, boom, you go to another place. And a lot of times, that might be from like when you were a teenager, when you were in your 20s, when you're in your 50s, or whatever that might be. Or it might be as a child, and it might be, who knows when, college.
You got to save me a spot on that. So
I will in a heartbeat. Of course you can come on. I'd love
Being a
you to come on. Do you have
I
any
grew up
songs in
DJing,
mind?
like literally, music is my mostly like electronic music, but house music. And I grew up in the era of like hip hop, so like yeah. The challenge for me would be picking just three. I'll tell you that much.
Well, I know. I
Yeah.
know. For me too. But wait a second. So are you considering doing anything on Spotify just to see how this thing goes?
Yeah, well, as with other projects, I'm focused on that. We've got our agency, so focus on that for now, like bringing business in. But probably it's something I think just because of my passion for music, I think it's something that I at least dabble in. Like you said, you can always try.
That's me. That's me. I love music so much, and all of my friends do as well. So I know it's going to be a really cool show. It's going to be rich. I've recorded.
Do you know the specifics of like, do you have to like, do they give you a publishing tool so that allows you to pull in something from the catalog and mix it in? How's that work?
So one of the caveats is that you have to use Anchor. So it's Spotify and Anchor together.
Got it. Okay.
And Anchor is not a bad platform. I have found it's okay, but it's kind of Mickey Mouse when you're used to doing things in a more fine tuning way.
Yeah.
But I'm getting around that, Harry, between you and I, because I record myself in Squadcast, I edit it in GarageBand, I master it in Auphonics, then I give it to the folks over there at
Anchor.
Anchor. Yeah, God, there's so many names. There's so many platforms.
You just have to include a song that you know is on the Spotify platform. Is that basically it? Or
Okay, so now you're in the Anchor platform, and I have it right in front of me, so I'm just going to read you what I'm looking at. So basically what they do is it's like in bright colors. You can't go wrong in Anchor. Number 1, it's a big orange one. It says record. And then next one says library. And the next one says music. The next one says messages and then transitions. So it's actually really cool.
Interesting.
I didn't use the record button because I uploaded my own wave.
Okay.
The library is if you want to get like some of their little canned ding dong, bung, 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 little sounds. The music, now this is what you're talking about. You click on music and it's just a search box comes up. And then you basically add any flippin' song.
And any duration?
I believe, any duration. I'm not using. Well, I am using the full duration on the 3 songs like that I chose. I did I'm in the middle of the edit of the first one. I mean, that's how so new this is, but it's all recorded. So I'm doing 3 full songs. I mean, like everybody will, and I have the talking to 9 minutes. So I talk for 9 minutes in between 3 songs. So the 3 songs will come up to about 19 minutes. Plus my 9 minutes of speaking. I'm trying to make it a 30-minute show, but now when I start having people on, it might be longer. It might be 40 minutes or so.
Yeah, because if they have to tell a story about the music, I mean, unless you cap each story at like 5, unless they're telling you the story for the whole 3, or they're piecing together the 3, or
no, it's not going to be the full. It won't be like a full story. Like I told, like my story, my first story took me about 2 minutes to say. My second story took longer, 4 minutes, and then the third story only took 1 minute. So it depends. Like my 3 songs, 2 of them are very meaningful, and the third one's meaningful, but it's just because it's like so happy. My third song, my like song that always gets me going, is from Melissa Etheridge, "Brave and Crazy." That's like my go-to. Pump it up, like you can do this. Brave, crazy, you get it. Anyway, so back to Anchor. You basically have these different places, these different files, and you place them in the right-hand column. There's like a click to upload, or you can drag the files in. And then from there, you can organize them just by clicking and moving the pieces around. But now let's say you want to edit in there. It seemed a little complicated, so I went back and edited in GarageBand, uploaded the file again. So now I already have an edited file.
How do you get that? So you're downloading the full song. You can download the full song?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. So then back in Anchor, I have my voice is edited because I did it on my own. And now in Anchor, I have to edit where those songs go.
Yeah.
Where is the insertion spot? So they allow you to basically click and leave, a marker, and then click and leave another marker, and then just take that song that you already got from the playlist and drop it in. Like, it's crazy. Now, I'm still learning about how I'm going to fade in and out, or the levels, because I don't know about the levels, but it seems pretty cool. So I'm very happy about that. My life in 3 songs. And I'm hoping to drop it right before Christmas is my idea. I'd like to drop 3 at once and then keep on going.
And the frequency of that that's going to be weekly, you said, or
every week? Yeah, every week. And the other thing, Harry, and I always recommend this to people starting podcasts. The other day, I immediately went and got the domain name, mylifein3songs.com. Yeah. I got the Instagram, My Life in 3 Songs, and I got Twitter, My Life in 3 Songs. So I'm so happy that, again, before solidifying things, I'm getting these pieces of the puzzle in place.
Love that. Yeah, I always talk about this new project that I have in vertical farming, which is like indoor farming, container farms and companies that are doing it. So I started a new podcast called the Vertical Farming Podcast.
Wow, how exciting. Oh my gosh, you did start another podcast.
And I started interviewing like CEOs and founders of these companies. And then I got a sponsor for the entire season. They paid for it before I launched an episode.
Congratulations.
But it was just, but I was working on the socials. So I grabbed all the socials, Instagram, and I was posting. I had got a LinkedIn company page, which is a good one to do. I always tell people get a LinkedIn company page.
I'm going to write that down. Because Tell me what the name of it is again.
Vertical Farming Podcast.
Verticalfarming.com and all that.
Verticalfarmingpodcast.com, yeah.
Podcast.com. And then on socials, it's just at
Vertical Farm Pod, yeah.
Vertical Farm Pod.
On all the socials,
that is so cool. I'll follow you.
Yeah.
Vertical Farm Pod. How cute. I love it. I'm so excited about this.
But it was just an example. It's super niche, like industry. And so I was I was doing it as an experiment to see if I could create my own production client. And so I started the show. We've got the experience producing shows. And then as I started speaking to companies, one of them sponsored the entire season.
That's unbelievable.
And paid me before I even released an episode.
Did you already know what you would charge? Did you have to think like, okay, wait. I'm going to do 10 episodes. I'm going to do them this long.
Well,
what did you say to you?
What's interesting is that these companies, I specifically targeted this industry and I thought about doing it because there's a lot of money coming into this industry. $14 billion, VCs coming in, spending like $100 million for this company. And so I was like, okay, this is an industry that's growing. That was like one of the things that was important because you could do any niche like butterfly collecting, but you're not going to get, companies to sponsor you. So as I was speaking to one of these companies, they were saying, oh, we usually go to trade shows and we pay $20,000 for a booth, right? So I was like, instantly did the math. And I was like, well, how about $9,000 to sponsor the entire season? And he's like, yes, no problem.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
I am so happy for you.
But it's just this because especially if you think about industries that would normally go to trade shows, and there's probably you could come up with 100 if you think about it. They have no marketing dollars that they need to spend, and they're not spending them. So what are these industries?
Now there's no trade shows. Now they don't have that.
Yeah, and these booths are not cheap. So they were going to be spending it in 2020 and first half of 2021. So I still think there's opportunities there for someone to just think about other types of industries to make
That's a great idea.
All these health conventions,
Yeah, all the conventions. There's no conventions.
Yeah, there's no conventions.
I love the ingenuity of people. That's so smart, Harry. Good on you.
Yeah. Well,
good on you.
It sounds like your show is going to be fun too. And I think now you've got me thinking about something to try out. And I'd probably lean more into since I grew up going to clubs, I could kind of work that angle of my last night at the club or my first time in a club or something like that would be fun.
Of course. Or that time the girl did that or somebody did something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Music is like in my soul. I play guitar, I play piano and ukulele, some harmonica. I love music. It's always on and around me. And I miss concerts so much. So I was thrilled to hear Spotify did this. And now we'll cross our fingers because there is, once I get this first one polished, I do have to submit for permission, I guess, or there is a process
to get it cleared or something like that, right?
Yeah, it's not going up immediately. So I got to go think about that as well. I'm just saying I'm doing, it's already happening. And I know I'm onto something good when I can't sleep. I can't sleep. I'm so excited. It's just so fun to go quick.
Well, it's nice to have new projects that get you, get the creative juices flowing and get you thinking. And you start to think about who are the guests that you're going to have on.
Yeah.
So that's going to be fun.
Another thing that happened to me this year in podcasting is I had a girl on my show several years ago who was actually a friend of mine, Michelle McNamara, and she passed away 3 years ago and maybe 4 years ago now. But she's the one who essentially caught the Golden State Killer. She named the Golden State Killer and she wrote a book her husband had to finish it for her because she passed away, but it was called, the name of the book was I'll Be Gone in the Dark. And Michelle had HBO did a whole documentary series this summer on her 6 episodes. So HBO called me and asked me if they could buy 2 episodes that Michelle was on.
Wow.
So I was able to sell those 2 pieces to HBO.
Very cool.
Yeah. And from there, I was able to sell it to a podcast that's going to be attached to it. And it's going to be called the I'll Be Gone in the Dark podcast.
Wow.
It's coming out this spring. And I sold them a piece of it. But you know what I did, Harry? I don't know if it's because I'm a nice guy or what, but I cut the podcast a big slack because Michelle was my friend.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily trying to capitalize on the situation.
Yeah.
And it's a podcast. How much do you think I charge them?
500 an episode?
$250.
Yeah.
Say I'm a nice guy.
Well, it's you kind of just this paid forward option. It's this abundance mindset. Yeah. It's this like not trying to take advantage of people. It's like do unto others, the golden rule, whatever you want to call it. It's like.
But I felt that because they're podcasters and I know the money there.
Yeah.
But then ABC bought it 2 weeks ago for 2020.
Oh wow.
And I got $1,500 from them.
Oh,
so you see, money changes depending on the client.
Because you did the right thing. So.
Thank you, Larry. But anyway, I certainly wish it wasn't at my friend's expense in terms of her death. But it was kind of an interesting way that I made some money that I didn't know was coming. You know, it's found money.
It just speaks to the power of continuing to be consistent with content creating, like this library that you have, like this 10 years of episodes. I mean, it's this catalog it's almost going to be like your legacy as well, right? Because
I think my daughter will be listening to me forever. Yeah. I just did another podcast. It was last year with Rachel O'Brien, a comedian. Yeah. It was called Screwed Up Stories. And we did 52 episodes. We were with Westwood One. So Westwood One, they, picked us up before we started the show. They picked us up. I got us in there because I met the guy at Podcast Movement. And somehow I talked my way into all my networks. Yeah. I definitely.
I'll make sure to hire you as my agent when it's time for me.
Oh my gosh. I talked my way into everywhere. But Westwood One, they picked us up 52 episodes. They got us sponsors and stuff, but really it did not break down into much money at all.
Yeah.
Because, if we were getting, say, $350 to do an ad or even $400 to do an ad, well, they took 35%. Now, Rachel and I split 65%. So now I get 32.5%. So whatever that is of 400 is not a lot of money.
Yeah.
Even if you have 2 sponsors a show all month. But it was a very good show. It was well produced. We got to record in a really fancy recording studio in Culver City. And so that part was cool, but it was disappointing, again, to get canceled. I mean, it just stabs you in the heart. And then Rachel went off and is doing another show, and I'm doing another show. So unfortunately, that show is like gone. And sometimes, I get a thing from Squarespace that says, you want to bring this website back? And I'm like, I guess not, and it disappoints me because the show was good. And it's a nice little body of work as well. So I'm happy I have that. My daughter has more shows.
And she'll know what to do with.
She'll be able to hear me.
Well, it's also this archival aspect of podcasting that I think some people are starting to become aware of. I use an example of a show we're producing for a gentleman who's working with his father, who's an English professor. So he's in Hawaii, the son's in Atlanta, and they talk about they pick a book and they kind of break into it. So that's one thing they're doing, but they're also father-son recording conversations that will be there forever because the father's like in his 80s or something like that. So at some point he'll
I'm going to
pass.
write that down because my boyfriend should be doing that with his father.
I'll send. It's called
guy.
Island Idylls.
Island Idylls.
IDYLLS. It's a really really fun conversation, and I actually do the editing on that one because I want to get the update on hearing the conversation. So it's been nice to follow their journey. They're about to do season 3. Yeah.
How many shows do you edit?
Oh, that very few at this point because I even had my team do my show as well. So just occasionally the ones where I'm interested in the topic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, or want to learn something about a topic.
Yeah, I still edit another show. I do 8 a month for this person for money. I have to.
Yeah.
For money. So I feel lucky that I can do it and I have the skill. I'm pretty fast
that's a good skill. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and then also teaching. I teach for the Manhattan Comedy School and Flappers as well.
Okay.
I teach podcasting and I teach storytelling.
No shortage of people wanting to learn about podcasting.
It's so fun. I love teaching. I really do. They're funny kids, man. I do 3 hours. It's a 6-week course, 3 hours a week, 18 hours of podcasting. You know what I do though, Harry? Is each class I pay somebody $100 to come in and talk about their own podcast.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's really good because I know a lot of people that are, I know like Lori Kilmartin came in, Alonzo Bowden. Yeah, Lisa Orkin. It's fun. Jackie Cation. They come in and
I'll come on for free.
Well, because why would they? Well, again, it's about...
No, I was saying I'll come on and talk about my podcast for free.
Oh, you would? Oh, I thought you said, why don't they come on for free?
Oh, no. I said I'd talk about podcasting as well. So if you want someone to talk about podcasting or be a guest teacher, happy to do that.
I think I might do that.
Yeah.
I need somebody on December 10th. But anyway, I guess I was just saying in terms of money, like it's not unheard of right now at all to be exchanging monies this way. Do you know what I mean? Like,
makes sense.
Or like, hey, Harry, you want to drop podcast junkies in my feed and we'll drop Storyworthy in your feed? I mean, there's a lot of that going on. Yeah. And fair enough. I haven't done it with anybody in a while, but when I was with Wondery, that was one thing with Wondery. They always made me... And that's why they took us on to begin with. I know this now. Hernan started this podcast network. They didn't have any content.
Yeah.
They had like one show, and it was Jenna Elfman doing like a play or something. The point is, they didn't have anything. So they picked up a bunch of shows like mine. Yeah. And I was with them for 2 full years. It was good, really. All good. But that they always made me drop their new shows coming in. Dr. Death,
Makes
Dr.
sense.
John,
Makes
Dr.
sense.
Doolittle,
Yeah.
Dr. Pepper. Every doctor that came through the door... they dropped in my feed.
Yeah.
I hated that because my show Storyworthy isn't true crime.
Yeah.
But they didn't have anybody. And the best way, of course, to spread the word is to be on other podcasts where people are already listening because that is the audience that listens to
it's the easiest
podcasts.
way to get new listeners on they're hearing you on another podcast.
Yeah. So do you want to drop Storyworthy in your...
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
I don't mind.
Okay.
We can do a story. We can do a drop swap. I don't know what it's called, but
yeah, I'm excited about really though. My life in 3 stories. That's my life in 3 songs.
Oh yeah.
I'm super.
We'll figure it out. We'll drop Storyworthy or My Life in 3 Songs. Yeah,
that's it, man. That's the one.
I think it's all as you start to build this community. I'm at year 6 now, and just you develop these relationships with friends in the world of podcasting, and we all help each other out because we all know what it's like and how hard. And every little bit of like, even if I get one listener from a drop, or you get one listener from a drop, we know that that's how you build a long-term listenership. They just come in one at a time. It's not like
pick up a Twitter follower here.
Exactly.
Pick up an Instagram follower here. I swear to God, that is so true, Harry. And we are not competing against one another.
Not at all.
No such thing.
Yeah.
Kevin Allison has a very successful storytelling show called Risk. How could that compete with what I do? Storyworthy. They're 2 different storytelling shows. Or The Moth. My show isn't nearly as tame as The Moth. I mean, it just depends. So but we're not competing. We really aren't. I hope people get that.
Yeah. So as we wrap up, Christine, when you think about it's hard to even plan because if we were thinking about like in March, or April planning, or I'm sorry, February, thinking about what our 2020 was going to look like, no one could have predicted that this was coming. So it's hard to even predict what the future is going to hold. But as you get ready for the next, maybe the next 10, what has you excited and what's going to keep you moving forward?
Honestly, talking to people like you and the people at Podcast Movement and just people's enthusiasm makes me so happy because I thought I was all alone back in 2010. It was me and Mark Maron and Adam Carolla, and those guys didn't know me. Trust me. I didn't know them either. By the way, Adam Carolla came on my show for my 5-year anniversary, which was very cool. Yeah, it meant a lot to me. So I just want to continue Storyworthy because obviously we're never going to run out of stories. And I find it's the best way to get to know somebody. Just tell me something, just tell me your story. Don't tell me your major. I don't care, but tell me your story. And that, I don't see how that will ever run out. That's going to go forever, in my opinion, as long as I'm here. And then My Life in 3 Songs. I have so much passion for that right now because songs and music, it is my world. It really is. And so My Life in 3 Songs, I think is going to impact a lot of people because it doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are. I asked my daughter, she's 13, what songs impacted her. Yeah, I was not thrilled to hear about Grace Vanderwall, but nonetheless, I just am really thrilled about that. And then also the Story Where the Hour of Power at Flappers. I'm happy about that. And then also Story Smash, the storytelling game show, is coming back on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube starting on December 4th. And I'm using a new platform called StreamYard.
Oh, yeah, I have
you seen that?
That's a good one, yeah.
Slick. Come on. Seriously. StreamYard is, I used to be a tour guide on the Paramount lot, and I used to take my tours into the Hard Copy studio because I thought it was so cool at Hard Copy. It's that cheesy magazine show. But I thought the control room was so cool. All the monitors and people saying, cut to 2, go to 3, take on 1, grab to 4, whatever. And that's what StreamYard can do. You are the producer.
Yeah, I know. I've seen people use OBS. That's one of the tools.
Same idea.
Well, it sounds like you got a lot of projects in the works and enough to keep you busy, definitely. So we'll make sure, if we don't have them already, we'll send me over the links. So make sure we put all those links in the show notes.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. I will.
And it was fun to catch up with you and hear what's going on. And I like that your energy and enthusiasm for the platform, for the medium, for podcasting hasn't waned. And I feel like you're an ambassador for podcasting, which is good because you've been doing it for so long. So you can tell people what it's like. They can see the ups and downs. You've been part of networks. You've been doing it solo. You've been figuring out like side hustles. You've been like,
The goal is don't get a real job. Don't get a real job. Everybody else's podcast, but don't you get a real job.
Yeah. Well, glad we got to catch up, and maybe we'll schedule one of these every couple of years just to kind of see what's going on. And
every couple of years, dude.
Well, the last time you came on was probably 20. If it's 110, that's
why I'm saying. Why do you want to wait that long?
All right, next year, definitely.
All right.
Stay safe. Stay safe.
Good to talk to you.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Harry. You too, buddy. Keep it up.
Thanks again to Christine for returning back on the show. Always much appreciated. And I can't tell you how much I enjoy speaking to friends, old friends on the show that have supported me in the early days. Full show notes available at podcastjunkies.com/248. Intro and outro music composed by Cedar and Soil. Don't forget to check out our sponsor, Focusrite, and their awesome line of gear, specifically the Scarlett 2i2 Pro, podcast production and marketing provided by Fullcast. Sign up for a free podcast brainstorm at fullcast.co/chat15. Tune in next week for my great conversation with Stacy Sims. And if you made it this far, you're no doubt looking for this week's retention hashtag. Let's go with Story Christine. And you can tag her at Storyworthy, one word, and podcast_junkies. Thanks for all you do to support the show. Talk to you next week.